welcome back to the channel. I appreciate you being here. It's been an interesting time the last few weeks. If you recently got laid off or furloughed, first and foremost, my heart goes out to you. It's a really nasty, crappy situation. Most of you who have been laid off or furloughed were not given much of a notice, if any notice at all. And look, I'm not going to get into the politics or the bureaucracy of corporations. That's not what this is about. Maybe one day we could talk about it, but what is happening is unavoidable, right? The economy is doing certain things. It's forcing companies to do certain things. Some of those things are not very pleasant for their employees. So we can look back and get angry and, fight a fight that's not really going to benefit us in any way. Or we could think about how to move forward, right? So if you got laid off or furloughed, you're in one of two categories right now. Category one is you're financially stable and you have the means to weather the storm, call it for 6 months, 12 months, or even longer. If that's the case, good for you. I'm very, very happy for you. Category two is people who don't have the means to weather the storm, and they are actually extremely concerned about how they're going to make rent. We'll call it in 2-3 months when their money runs out. So regardless of what category you're in, it's really important to think about what just happened to you, right? Being let go without a moment's notice is the new reality. And again, you could think about how it's not okay, or it's not a humane way to treat people, or how you gave up all these years of your life and you should have at least been given like a month or two. The economy is not allowing for a month or two of notice, unfortunately. The only thing the economy is allowing for is at the very most maybe 7 to 10 days of notice. And if you didn't get that, then again, I'm sorry for you. What I'm really hoping happens here is that those of you, especially those of you who are a little bit younger, are going to be scarred by this in a good way. Back in 2008, when I was a younger man, I went through a different kind of economic depression because of the mortgage crisis. A lot of you don't remember that, but to make a long story short, the economy tanked in 2008, the housing market, the bubble completely burst in all of our faces, and many of us had to suffer bankruptcies, foreclosures, loss of jobs, and worse. A lot of us had to take a lot of humility pills, sleeping at a friend's house, going back to mom and dad's, and trying to figure out what things we can cut out of our day-to-day routine. We call that humility, right? So my first advice to you is this is not a time to be arrogant. This is not a time to think about pride or matching the exact same career you just left or got fired or furloughed from. So for example, if you were fired and your career path, we'll just give it a rating, right? So on a scale of 1 to 10, you were a 6 in your company's organization in terms of ranking. Now you could try to go back to a 6 at a different organization and hopefully that works out for you. But if your bills aren't being paid, then there might not be the wiggle room to go back to a 6. You might have to settle for a 5 or a 4 or even a 3, and then just make sure you specify that you are looking for growth in your next organization and this is a temporary fit for you. But if the bills aren't being paid, there's no time for pride, right? If you have enough money to weather the storm for 2, 3, 4 years and you're filthy rich and this is just a blip on your radar, then God bless you, right? The other piece of advice I would give you, there actually is an insanely bright light at the end of this tunnel, and that is in the form of self-education. What a lot of you don't realize, and again, I will revert back to 2008, I learned more about myself in 2008 than I ever have as a man in my entire life. I understood the meaning of communication in the corporate world. I understood this is a cutthroat world. I understood the value of saving money for a rainy day. I understood the value of treating people a certain way, making sure I over-communicate because nothing was communicated to me. So through so much defeat, I learned the things that I wanted to avoid later on in life. And now as a little bit of I wouldn't call myself an old man quite yet, but older and more mature, when the economy struck twice in 2020, the lessons I learned in 2008 prevented me from having hardships. So be mindful that this is just one of the really, really important life lessons that the American economy is teaching you, or the worldwide economy is teaching you. My advice is really, really simple. You have time now, more time than you've ever had in your entire life. You are home. Start networking your face off. Start making phone calls. Start sending emails. Start improving your resume. Get down and dirty with reaching out to people that you've never reached out to before. I get it, it might seem a little uncomfortable, but there are organizations that are hiring, and the competition for those organizations is now going to be a lot more stiff than it ever has been. So if you were part of a 1,000 or a 2,000 or a 5,000 person layoff, unfortunately, you now have 5,000 people that are competing for jobs in your local community just from your organization. Now there might be 4 or 5 other main organizations who are also competing for jobs. Now you have the small businesses who had to let go of their employees. Now they're competing for jobs. Then you have the restaurants, food and nightlife who also let go of their staff. They're competing for jobs. So the competition is as stiff and as difficult as it has ever been. You can't just submit a resume and hope for the best. You need to have the best resume. You need to have more networking than anybody else in your networking group. You need to start doing things that are a little bit out of your comfort zone. Let me rephrase, things that are very much out of your comfort zone. It's really, really important that you take this advice and run with it as fast and as hard as you can. So again, number 1, summary. The scars are good. They will teach you something later on in life. And in 5, 10, or 15 years, you'll remember this moment and you'll be extremely cautious about living paycheck to paycheck ever again, right? Number 2, the time you have is so valuable in terms of learning a new skill, taking a class. Most classes are free. Harvard, Yale, Stanford, MIT. Not sure if you know this, but they offer free courses to anybody who just wants to improve on a life skill. Start networking with everybody that you know. Make sure your LinkedIn profile is the best version of any LinkedIn profile that's out there right now. If your resume is not looking good, make it look good. And then make it look better after that, and then have it looked at by a pro, and then revise it again, and then again, and then again, until it's not just the best version of the resume you could have written, but the best version of a resume 10 people could have written. And now you know you're ready to start applying. And then on top of that, no, I'm not done yet. Start making phone calls to the people that are hiring. Do not just send in your resume and hope that they see it. They won't see it because they have a stack of 2,000 other resumes to look at. Pick up the phone, call the recruiting manager, the hiring team. Ask a friend who works there to refer you. If you don't have a friend, ask a friend of a friend who works there to refer you. If you don't have a friend of a friend, ask 5 friends of friends in that network to refer you. And then ask for introductions. There is no excuse for you to just be down on your luck. There's no such thing as down on your luck. There are people who are home playing video games with their spare time, and there are people who are out doing whatever the F they need to do to make stuff work. Which one are you?